All right, so in continuing our talks about empires, we're going to be looking at African empires in the year 1500s CE. So we're going to be looking at two empires in particular. One are the Empire of sort of Western and Northern Africa, and then also the Congo Empire of Central Africa as well. Just looking at where these places are, or these empires exist. The Mali Empire is in West Africa near the Niger River, and they have access to sort of these trade routes that are going across the Sahara Desert of northern Africa. And you can see the Mali Empire in green on the map below. And then you also have the Congo Empire, which is in brown towards the southernmost empire that we have here. It's in Central Africa near the Congo River. It has coastal access to Atlantic Ocean trade as well. And so in this case, geography is really shaping the amount of trade that can happen between these or with these empires, with other places and other empires themselves, as well as wealth, culture, and then outside contact as well. In terms of looking at the Mali Empire, or an overview of the Mali Empire, it is a what powerful West African state that is influenced by Islam. Islam was really the major religion of this particular society. And they ended up building, aside from religion, they ended up building their wealth from both the gold and salt trade, which was so abundant in the trans-Saharan trade routes. They're also known for their scholarly centers like Timbuktu, which was part of the Mali Empire. And in terms of thinking about the leadership of the Mali Empire, we're going to talk about this more, but the rulers really were able to maintain their influence by legitimizing themselves by becoming Islamic, but also through developing sort of family networks or kinship networks where their relation to someone of power sort of allowed them to have more power themselves. Thinking about how the Mali Empire was run, they had power centered under one emperor who was known as the Mansa. And the Mansa was someone that was of great power, obviously, as the emperor of this huge empire within Africa. You also have provincial governors, like we've seen in some of the other empires, that are appointed to control different regions. And on top of that, their laws and rules were really guided by Islam itself, as well as local traditions. So these two sort of things came together and would sort of, you know, be the law of that particular area. And this was done all to sort of both keep the empire together, but also to be able to manage these very diverse populations. Now, in terms of thinking about how family played a role, these sort of kinship networks ended up encouraging loyalty between the different clans within the Mali Empire, and then the ruling families where the Mansa would be a part of. And so there's a huge amount of sort of blending these traditions of Islam, but also in terms of thinking about like local control and your connections to each other. Military and technology, the armies helped to protect the trade routes that were so important to the wealth of this particular empire. It ended up aiding them in expanding their territory as well. They were also very skilled in terms of cavalry fighting. So they had these cavalry units that gave mobility in warfare to the Mali Empire. You also have trading towns that would be set up as sort of like stations to be able to trade goods with. And they would build forts around these trading towns in order to protect them and keep them from different armies that would try and take these places over. And on top of that, they also had a technological amount of skill in terms of the iron weapons that they were using as well. So they had horses, of course, They are also building these forts, but then they're also using very skilled and well-made iron weapons as well to protect themselves. Now, in terms of accomplishments, Mali became one of the wealthiest regions in the world due to the gold that was within this empire. They also had flourishing cities like Timbuktu and Gao, uh, and all of this is leading to the building of these universities in places like Timbuktu that are supporting large libraries, large schools, becoming really a center within the world for a huge amount of knowledge being passed. And on top of that, they're really encouraging Islamic scholarship, where, in terms of the Islamic world at this time, that was by far the most probably learned center or civilizations on Earth for the advancements that they're making in a whole host of areas, including mathematics and science and other areas like that. And so this is making the Mali Empire a huge, major intellectual center as well. Now, on top of this, there is a culture and belief system that backs it up. I've mentioned already the role that Islam is playing, and Islam is really providing a huge amount of legitimacy and power to rulers. If you are not Islamic, you're probably not going to be the Mansa of the Mali Empire. And so there is a connection as well to the wider Muslim world, where you may be able to have easier trading relationships with other Islamic empires as well. You also have local beliefs, though, within the Mali Empire, and this is emphasizing ancestors and spirits guiding daily life. And so all of this is being blended together in terms of how Mali practices Islam as well. They're also adopting the types of writing that an Arabic script, and this was all used in order to develop scholarly writing in places like Timbuktu, like we talked about. And then the other thing that's also happening is that all of this is being blended together, both the local traditions and the Islamic faith, to create this unique art and music and literature that is existing within Mali. So, in terms of, once again, Islamic scholarship, one of the most famous schools was Sankore, and this was in Timbuktu. And here, scholars could study a variety of different things like law or science or mathematics and religion. The manuscripts, so the written, sort of texts that were created here were traded like valuable goods, like salt and gold within the rest of the kingdom. And this sort of helped to, because there is a passing on of information, it helped to connect Mali to global academic networks in North Africa, but also in the Middle East as well, where so much scholarship was happening at this time. Now, moving into our second kingdom that we're going to look at today, we have the Kingdom of Congo. And this is a Central African kingdom that was led by a king known as the Manikongo. And they had a strong central government over a network of provinces. Their wealth came from ivory, so the tusks of elephants, copper, cloth, and then later global Atlantic trade, especially with the Portuguese. Thinking about how this empire was run, you have the Manikongo, the king, that appoints governors to run these provinces. They also have a complex bureaucracy. So how are the administrative tasks of the empire being run? To collect taxes, to collect tribute, again, sort of those additional payments to sort of for protection and for honoring those that are the leaders of the society. And then you also have a government that is basing its decisions on both family ties and then also written correspondence. So how are you convincing me through writing of the points that you're trying to make. And so that would sort of guide a lot of the decisions that were being made. And all of this ends up demonstrating really early African diplomatic sophistication because, you're not just going based on what your family says, but you're also combining that with like being moved by someone else's argument and to be able to make compromise and to set up, advantageous relationships and partnerships. So one of the major ways that this diplomacy was taking place in the Congo Empire was between Congo and the European country of Portugal. And these two places exchanged letters, they exchanged ambassadors who were representing each side coming to the other place. And they sort of have this ongoing relationship to set up an advantageous trade relationship. And one of the early ways in which this partnership ended up going was in transforming the Congo kingdom into a mostly Christian, kingdom. So Manikongo Nzinga e Nkuwu becomes Joao the First, which Joao is a Portuguese name. So he adopts a Portuguese name, he becomes Christian, and this sort of builds that diplomatic legitimacy, where there is more of a tie there because of religion as an identity within these two places. And Christianity, therefore, from this point on, becomes sort of a political tool in order to access European alliances and trade, where the Congo people can sort of show Europeans that, hey, we're on your side because we share this religion, we share this faith. Now, in terms of military and technology, because of this relationship with the Portuguese traders, the Congo Empire becomes one of the early adopters on the African continent of firearms. And so they ended up using these firearms combined with their traditional weapons and tactics for warfare, like bow and arrow. And on top of that, they're also building coastal forts in order to defend themselves. Now, this has two purposes, not only to defend the land that they have, but also to defend the trade routes and to be able to control Atlantic trade routes as well. And so all of this is helping to maintain sort of a regional dominance that the Congo Kingdom has over, large swaths of Central Africa. Now, on top of this, like I said a couple slides ago, Christianity is really, sort of becoming a huge part of this kingdom. And so, just like we saw with the Mali Empire, where they blended Islam with local traditions, Christianity in the Congo Kingdom is being blended with indigenous ancestor veneration, where people are believing that ancestors could influence health and crops and community harmony. And so respecting your elders, respecting ancestors is huge in terms of keeping good karma going, so to speak. And so this sort of belief in the spirits and ancestral protection sort of reinforced loyalty to the king, so you had less rebellions because of that. And the king's power was oftentimes connected to noble ancestral lines. So ruling families oftentimes claimed special authority, like sort of think of it like the divine right of kings that we saw in Europe, that is allowing them to stay in power as well. Now, art was oftentimes a reflection of those religious beliefs. And so art was also used as well as religious objects, and sometimes they were the same thing, to represent lineage, so your connection to your family line, and legitimacy as well. And then on top of it, the spread of Christianity was brought about as well throughout the kingdom through missionary schools, oftentimes with people from Portugal, where things like literacy were also taught in addition to those religious teachings. And all of this enables for greater record keeping for people that have been taught to read, taught to write, and that's going to continue their knowledge as well. Thinking about the similarities and differences between Mali and Congo, in terms of similarities, both of them have a centralized administration. Both of them use religion in order to strengthen the ruler's authorities. They also are participating in large trade networks, with the Mali people being on the trans-Saharan trade routes, and the Congo people being on the Atlantic trade routes. And then they are also blending local beliefs with imported religions. And so they're sort of making these religions their own while also following the beliefs of these religions. Now, in terms of differences, the Mali was linked by the trans-Saharan trade, Congo was linked by the Atlantic trade, and that leads to who they sort of partner with as well. Congo more with Europeans, Mali more with Northern African and Middle Eastern groups. And then Mali also had scholarly prestige, and Congo are sort of forming, very sophisticated diplomatic alliances as well. And then the last one, Mali really fought using horses and cavalry, and Congo are adopting firearms as well. In terms of why these empires matter and why we're looking at African empires, it showed that these African societies were powerful, sophisticated, and internationally connected. And in all of the propaganda that is going to be spread by Europeans as they take over Africa to portray African societies as less civilized, we need to remember back to the fact that these are very, very sophisticated societies that are existing within Africa for hundreds, if not thousands of years before the Europeans came here. And so a lot of this is misinformation from people who are trying to portray Africa in a certain light. And it's also demonstrating how religion, trade, and administration can sort of build up an empire's strength or imperial strength. It's also challenging stereotypes, like I said. It's highlighting literacy, it's highlighting diplomacy, scholarship, advanced institutions that are existing within Africa as well. And there was an influence of global history through this sort of cultural and economic exchange that's taking place in both kingdoms. All right, if you have any questions over the African empires, please let me know. Other than that, have a great day.